Hello, I'm Sage Sherlock. I'm here to share with you all about pokeweed for the next half hour, 45 minutes or so. I'm here in North Oakland, which is Chichenyo Ohlone land. Before I talk about any plants, I like to give thanks to the people who tended to the plants for hundreds and hundreds of generations, although they didn't actually tend to this plant because this plant didn't arrive here until colonialization, like long after. But I'll talk more about that later. But yeah, so all of the Bay Area, I know the East Bay Area is Ohlone land, and if you live in the Bay Area, like anywhere in the Bay Area, there's this really awesome organization called Sogorea Land Trust, and I'll put their information in the description, but you can pay a land tax for being a settler on their land. It's really awesome. Good way to give thanks. Yesterday was Thanksgiving Day, so this is a really great way to give back. So here I am in North Oakland. I'm at this wonderful place called Place, and this is like a communal living, multifaceted, awesome place. They have gardens where they grow vegetables. They give back to the community. I know that they've been making like hella burritos every week to just hand out for free. And there's a kiln, so they do ceramics. There's a woodworking studio. There's so many facets to this place. You can check them out at place.community. That is the website name. And yeah, I've been coming here for a couple weeks now. I just moved up here from LA, and I actually live in Marin, but I come down here and help out with all the herbal stuff. So this is like the first class in a series. And so this class I'm going to go all into pokeweed. All right, so this class will go in a couple of different sections. First, I'm going to go over the botany, and then I'm going to go over the edibility, and then I'm going to go over how to dye clothes with it. Then I'm going to go over the medicine, and then the energetics, which is medicine, therapeutics, and then energetics. Yeah, so pokeweed, its Latin name is Phytolacca. There's about 30 species in the genus of Phytolacca. Phyto, if you break it down to the etymology, phyton is Greek for plant, and then lac is French for red pigment. So there you have plant with a red pigment. So it's kind of already giving you hints, you know. The pokeweed that is most common in North America is Phytolacca americana. This one is not Phytolacca americana. Phytolacca americana you're going to see that mostly in the South and on the East Coast. And this one I believe is Phytolacca heterotepala. Phytolacca heterotepala, which is Mexican pokeweed, and that grows in Mexico and in like southern Arizona. But yeah, the reason why I know that this is not Phytolacca americana is because of the way that the berries are growing. Just bring this down. Okay, so with Phytolacca americana, the berries droop. Like you have this whole bushy plant, and the berries on this one, they're going upwards, but on Phytolacca americana, the berries are drooping. So it's like they're just heavy. There's so many berries. Yeah, but all pokeweed can be used in the ways that I'm gonna say that it can be used for later on in this little talk here. But it's just nice to know which one you're working with, so that you have a name to call it, and just, like Pokemon, gotta catch them all. Here's Phytolacca heterotepala. So yeah, okay, I guess I'll go over the botany some more. So these are the berries. They grow in a raceme formation. So raceme is like the botanical term for the way that the flowers grow and then thus the berries grow. So for example, a plant that you could possibly get pokeweed confused with would maybe be elder, because it also has a lot of berries and it grows in a similar kind of just like upright, very bushy form. But elderberry, the berries grow in an umbel shape. So this is raceme, so it grows long. Elderberries grow in an umbel shape, so umbel sounds like umbrella, so they are growing like this. So, okay. Say, okay, this is the stem for elderberry, and then it has a bunch of other stems that are coming out like this, and then all the berries are at the top. So that's an umbel shape, and this is a raceme shape when it grows out. And then another way to identify poke from elder is usually pokeweed has a lot of pink on the stems. This plant doesn't have so much, which was my first clue that it's not Phytolacca americana, because Phytolacca americana is super pink. Like this, the stems, the trunks will be like hot pink. Here, maybe I will show you this over here. Very pink, right? And then the leaves have pink. And then definitely the berry stems are super hot pink. Yeah, so that's another way to tell. These pokeweed grows to be about 10 feet tall. It can grow to that tall. It doesn't always have to grow to be that tall. Oh, here, I'm seeing a flower growth. So let me show the flower. Flowers are super beautiful. I don't know if I can get it in focus. Yeah, but something cool about the flower and berry growth is that you'll have a flower on the same raceme. You'll have a flower going, you'll have a berry going, you'll have an old berry going. It's just like a super transitional plant. Like there's so much stuff going on. It's super active. The flowers, they start popping up in August, and then it continues to berry to fruit until November, which is a really long time. That's like 4 months. So this plant, it's so giving. The birds love it. The raccoons love it. The birds is its most used. The birds are the way that it propagates itself, the way that it germinates itself. It actually germinates, the seeds germinate faster when they go through a bird body. You know, some seeds, they like little scarification, so they like to be scratched with sandpaper a little bit if you're doing it yourself. Some seeds, like some fire germination, they need a lot of heat to wake up the seeds to start growing. Pokeberry seeds really like to go through bird bodies. It just makes it work a lot quicker, but they also like germinate really fast on their own anyways. So if you were wanting to grow this plant on your own, then you could just take the berries, put the berries in a little single seed starter, and it will germinate. And that might sound crazy if you live somewhere where this plant grows, because if you're somewhere where this plant is native to, or not native to, but if you're somewhere where this plant likes to be, then it's all over the place. Like people usually want to contain it. It's usually a nuisance to a lot of folks. So yeah, it's not native here, but I don't really see it acting invasive in the Bay Area. It definitely acts invasive if you go more north, like into Oregon and Washington. I know that it's like all over the place there. But yeah, as I said before, Phytolacca americana is native to the South and the East Coast. But pre-colonialization, it was not that much of a problem as it is now, because pokeweed really likes to grow on disturbed soils. And there wasn't really that much of disturbed soils before like industrialization and colonialization types of living, you know what I mean? Like before, the main place that it grew in the South and the East Coast was along rivers that moved. So, you know, rivers will change shape, like they'll just change directions. Like, for example, in LA, the LA River is a river that was moving all over the place and was causing problems, like flooding different plains. And so that's why they put concrete and contained it. But before, that was kind of like the only place that pokeweed was able to live. You know, it's a really like freaky, like outsider plant. It's like, okay, I'm just gonna be here. So it was like always by the rivers that move, you know, maybe like in between habitat changes where the soil is different. But yeah, but now it's all over the place. And people, if you're living in a place where it grows a lot, then it's probably a nuisance to you. And if you are wanting to contain it, then as soon as the berries start to come, like you can't let them get to this state where they're starting to get like yummy and ripe. You can let it flower, but then, okay, I see a good example. There's just so much berry growth on this guy. Okay, so like this is an okay place for it to be, but as soon as it starts to get more ripe, you want to cut it off because the birds will eat it and it will spread. So if you're trying to control the spread of this plant, then cut off the berries before they ripen. Yep. Oh, let's talk about the name. Okay, so it's Latin name, Phytolacca americana, Phytolacca heterotopala, but the common name is pokeweed. It's also pokeberry. It's also been called pokeweed, Polk, and the reason that you will sometimes see it spelled that way is because like way back when, was it James Polk? Yeah, James Polk, who was our 11th president, his fans would wear poke leaves as like a lapel on their shirts to show support, and so this plant became pokeweed, like Polk, which is just like, you know, this is a plant that's native to here, so well, not here, but to the East Coast. And then you'll also see pokeweed be called poke salad, which it used to be poke salat, Sallat, which is like an Old English term for a hot salad, like greens that have been steamed or something. But then it got slowly changed into poke salad, and that's a problem because you do not want to eat this plant raw. It's really poisonous. So yeah, but it used to be poke salat, which was the proper name. Like poke salad, you don't want to eat it raw. There used to be a very popular song in 1969 called Poke Salad Annie. And that song was about like a little poor girl from the South who was so poor that she couldn't eat anything. She couldn't buy anything to eat, so she was just always eating poke salad because it's free. She's ahead of her times and harvesting those spring greens. Yeah, okay, let's see. Was there anything else that I wanted to talk about with in terms of botany? Oh, let's talk about chemistry. Okay. So, as I said, it's poisonous. It gets more poisonous as it gets older, so I'll talk about the edibility soon, but this is a poisonous plant, like proceed with caution. Like mega warning for this whole, everything that I'm saying, like take caution when approaching this plant. It usually doesn't bother people to touch, but sometimes it does. So just be careful, it affects everybody really differently. Like I said, the birds, they eat it. Last time that I was here visiting this plant, there was a dead rat behind it, and to me that's just like such a sign, like maybe the rat ate too many pokeberries and it killed it. There's a lot of livestock that this plant is poisonous to, a lot of sheep, horses and stuff, but it depends on the individual, because as I'll explain when I get into the medicine part, there was this guy who he had a horse ranch in like Illinois, and he noticed that one of his horses was healing himself from his tumors, like he was eating all these different herbs and stuff. And pokeweed is usually really poisonous to horses, but this horse was eating like small amounts of this plant, and so the horse knew what it needed, but they're not all that smart, and so there's a lot of stories of horses dying. So this is not a plant that you want to have around or keep contained in another area, if you have livestock, which you probably already know if you have livestock and you have this plant around. But yeah, it's a plant to warn your children about if you have little kids, because the berries, they do look really delicious and they don't taste that bad. I've like tried a berry or two. And yeah, so you just want to warn people because it is super poisonous. And what is the name of the constituent? Phytolactin is the toxic alkaloid that makes it toxic. Yeah, another cool pigment constituent that's in this plant is the constituent that gives it its color, the pinkness. It's called beta-cyanin. And beta-cyanin, if you see pigment, it's usually like indicative of the pigment acting as like an antioxidant. You know, like think about blueberries and the anthocyanins. And so, yeah, the pink pigment, the beta-cyanins in pokeweed, gives it some longevity, some antioxidant properties, but that is for the plant. When we are going to use poke as medicine, we're not going after the beta-cyanins. It's not like we're taking this plant for its antioxidants. The plant uses the antioxidants for itself. Okay, so if you're wanting to get some beta-cyanins as an antioxidant to use for yourself, then there's a lot of other really delicious, non-toxic foods that you can get it from, like beets. Beets get their color from beta-cyanins, and so do prickly pears from cactus. A lot of succulents use beta-cyanins for their coloring. Is there any other food? Pretty sure that was it. There's probably other things that I don't know about, but yeah, beets and prickly pears, like, good source of beta-cyanins. Yeah. Okay, let me just double check. See if I'm missing anything. Oh, you'll also find that it grows in places where there's a lot of birds. Like there's so many birds around here, and I don't know what came first, chicken or the egg. You know, I don't know if the plant was here and then the birds came, or if the birds are eating the berries and then they're dropping them off where they are, you know, but they're like, birds and pokeberry go together. Yeah, okay. Let's move on to eating. Okay, so you only eat this plant when it's really tiny. And it's just a little shoot in the springtime. You know, we have our spring greens that we eat. We got chickweed, cleavers, miner's lettuce, and pokeweed if you have it around you. Those are like our main spring greens here in California. But in the South where this grows a lot, I'm sure you guys have a whole other set of spring greens that I don't know about. But yeah, this is a really good spring green. And like I said, you don't want to eat it raw. You want to boil this in water for at least 2 times. 2 times meaning you boil it in water once, and then you throw out the water, and then you put the young shoots in new water, boil it again, and then throw out that water, and then you eat those greens. Now, I have read many different accounts of people who live in the South, and they like grew up with pokeweed, and they've been eating it their whole lives, and they will just steam it once. They'll just boil it once and then throw out the water and then eat it like that. And I would hate to say that everybody should do that, and then somebody goes and does that and they like get poisoned from it. So definitely for like the first couple of times, do the boiling once, throw out the water, do it again, throw out the water. Do it that way until you like get familiar with this plant, you know. Another traditional way that the Southerners eat pokeweed is by frying it. They'll like coat it in egg, corn meal, and then fry it up. And that doesn't involve boiling it at all, you know. So I don't know, but you don't want to eat it when it starts to form more of itself. Like when it's still like young and tender and it's like pliable, that's when you pick it. But as soon as it starts to hold its form, then don't do it. Yeah, okay. Now let's talk about dyeing. So the name Phytolacca, plant with red pigment, it's a wonderful dye. Like the color that this plant makes is so bright. It's kind of like cochineal, you know, the little bugs that grow on prickly pears, the prickly pear cactus. And it's super bright and beautiful. And the way that you do it is you get the berries. You want to harvest a bunch of them in a bucket. Use gloves if, you know, you're nervous about it. And you will see like little pimples if you're allergic to just touching it. Like I can touch it and I'm fine, but some people, they can't touch it. So just wear gloves if you want to be careful, which you should be careful. Wear gloves the first time that you handle it. And what I was saying though is that the sign, if you have a reaction, is you'll get this like little pimply rash. And so then just like put gloves on. So yeah, you harvest a bunch of the berries and they're super juicy. They're really easy to mash down. So you get the berries, you get like a bowl, you mash them down. I saw this really cute video of this mom and daughter, and like the little girl had a bucket with her feet in it, and her feet were in a plastic bag, so it wasn't actually touching the berries, and she's just like mashing it like grapes, you know. That was really cute. If you have like a ricer, then you can like mash it down that way. But it's really easy to juice, and then just strain out the seeds because the seeds are super poisonous. And then you have the juice, and then you have your fabric, whatever fabric you're using, cotton, wool. I doubt it works on synthetic. I just want to preface this also by saying that I am not the biggest natural dye person, but I have dyed with pokeberry before once, but it's not like, you know, something that I'm super skilled in, or like something that I do a lot, you know, but just passing on information here. Okay, so yeah, you have your fabric and the juice, and then you want to start off the fabric in a mordant bath with vinegar. You could do like half vinegar, half water, so soak the fabric in the vinegar and let it soak for like a couple hours, and then take it out and then put it into a pot with the berries, and make sure that the clothes are like submerged in it. It's not just in the juice, but you want to make sure that they're submerged so that they can float around, so you get an even dye. And then you want to heat it up once, just to get that like heat locking in that you get when you're using natural dyes. Usually you want to do like a heat lock and let it soak for like a day. And then drain it out and run it underwater until it runs dry, and then you have your your beautiful pokeberry dyed clothes. So that's one way to do it. And then I found this other really amazing way to dye with pokeberry, and it involves a pumpkin. So you got a pumpkin, like not too big, and this is all like super autumnal, you know, because the berries are coming out from August through November, so then you're gonna have pumpkins around that time. So you get a pumpkin and you take all of the seeds out. Don't want to scrape it too clean, but just get the seeds out, and then you put your clothes into the pumpkin or your fabric, and then you get the juice, same as before, make sure all the seeds are out, and then you put the juice into the pumpkin so it's filled up again, so there's like swimming room. And then put the top of the pumpkin on and let it sit out in the sun for 2 days. And there's like some kind of fermentation that happens that acts as the mordant, you know, and then you get like the warming from the fermentation and from the sun, and then that's it. And then just clean it off, take the clothes out and clean it off, and make sure that it's running clear from the water. And yeah, that sounds like the best way to dye clothes with pokeberry. Like, that's just so magical. Okay, is that all of it? Sorry, I'm just like checking my notes after I give my spiel just to make sure that I don't forget anything I wanted to talk about. Oh, I didn't write any notes for dyeing. That all came from my head. Okay, so now let's get into therapeutics. So, as I've said before, pokeweed is poisonous. This is not the first plant that you're gonna reach for. This is the last plant that you're gonna reach for. This plant is apocalyptic. Like, if, you know, it's gonna help you out when you need help. This plant is a food, it's a medicine, and it's a poison. This is very powerful, freaky deaky plant. So just approach it with caution, okay? Okay, so pokeweed is used anywhere that you need a lymphatic. Where do you need lymphatics? You need them in infections. You need them in skin conditions. You need them with cancer. So as I'm saying, pokeweed is like super strong, and you want to try other plants before you try pokeweed. So like you want to try other gentler lymphatics like cleavers, like chickweed, like marigold, like echinacea, some other, yeah. So try those first and see if that works, and then if not, then maybe you can move on to pokeweed. And I'm going to talk about dosing soon, okay? So please listen to this all the way through. Don't just like listen to bits and pieces. This all is very important. Yeah, so use other lymphatics before you reach for pokeweed. And where do you need lymphatics? As I was saying before, you need them for like infections. Pokeweed is very historically used for lung infections. So like, you know, bronchitis, walking pneumonia, tonsillitis, like any kind of like difficult infection that isn't going away, you can try pokeweed for that. It's also helpful for ear infections, for eye infections, for mastitis, which is like an infection that happens when you're breastfeeding. Okay, I'm going to talk about I'm going to keep talking. Sorry, sometimes it's hard for me to organize how to get the information from my brain and out. Okay, skin conditions. So like really difficult eczema. This actually helped me a lot with my eczema. So this plant is really useful, but yeah, you want to try other plants before. So what's another plant that you would try before for like eczema? I'm just kidding. Like burdock or red clover or cleavers, you know, all the other lymphatics, and dandelion, milk thistle, like work on the liver for skin conditions before you try pokeweed. Yeah, and and then with cancer, okay, so let's talk about the guy who I was talking about before with the horses in Illinois. His name was Mr. Hoxsey. His name was Harry Hoxsey. And he came up with this formula blend that he gathered by watching this horse, as I was saying before, this horse who had a tumor, and he was watching his horse eat all these different herbs, and then the horse's tumors went away. He's like, whoa, my horse just cured itself. It's amazing. Animals are amazing. And pokeweed was one of them. So if you know somebody with cancer, like early stages or even later stages, you know, this formula has worked for a lot of people over a long time. Like I don't have the time written down when it came out, but I think I want to say this was like in the 50s that he came out with this formula, and it's been working for a lot of different people. So this is the Hoxsey formula, Hoxsey, Hoxsey Herbal Therapy. Yeah, so it's helpful in cancer, this plant, and you want to use this plant when you know that you have a virus and nothing else is working for the virus. You've reached for all the other things, and then you arrive with pokeweed, your knight in shining armor. Okay, so let's talk about how to make medicine with it, and then I'll probably bounce back to like what it's good for, bouncing around here. Okay, so the most medicinal part of the plant is the root. The most therapeutically medicinal part of the plant is the root, and you want to harvest that in like November, December, wherever you live. It might be different, but when you see the plant starting to die back, when it's done having all the berries and the plant is, all the leaves are starting to fall off. There's a plant in the front of place that is in this stage. It's like the leaves are all dying back, and so all the energy is going back into the roots. And so that is when you want to harvest the roots. And the roots are really big. There's like a big initial crown of the roots, and then there's other roots that come off of that initial crown. Oh my god. Speaking of all of the crown, and I just want to read this really funny description, like super horny description that I found in a book of speaking about pokeweed botanically. Okay, they're all like, grows up to 10 feet, has a thick, upright central stem with a bulging taproot. So you want to dig out that bulging taproot, and but you want the actual like roots that are coming off of it, the long pieces. Okay, so you want to take the roots out, and you want to wear gloves when you're doing this because it can cause irritation. And then you take the roots inside, you have a cutting board, chop the roots up, put it into a jar, halfway full, fill up the rest with vodka. You don't want to use too strong of alcohol, just use like your regular store vodka. You know, this is not really a plant that you need to do. I mean, you can do it like in the scientific method. There's two ways to make tinctures, the scientific method and the folk method. The way that I'm telling you how to do it is the folk method, because it's just like such strong medicine, and you're going to use such small amounts of it. And the half full jar and then filling the rest of it up with vodka, that's like the classic way to do it. So that's how I'm telling y'all to do it. This is the way that I've done it, and it works well for me. Yeah, and you want to use it fresh. When it's dried out, it's not as potent anymore. So that's the way. Oh, and then label it. If you know me, you know that I'm all about my labels. So label pokeweed if you know what kind of pokeweed it is, Phytolacca americana or whatever kind of pokeweed you're dealing with. Write the Latin name, because it's nice to get, if you're into Latin names. I know it's whatever, but anyways. So yeah, just write the Latin name if you're into it, and then write poison, because if you have like kids in the house and they're curious and they're grabbing things, you know, if they see poison, hopefully they know to stay away from that. You can like draw a little skull on it. You can write where you got the pokeweed from, and then definitely write the date. And yeah, and then this should last you a really long time, like forever. Let it sit for a month, shake it up every day, and then strain it out. I've seen some people that they don't even strain it out. They just like leave it all in there and then just take a little bit as they need. Which leads me into talking about dosage. This is a drop dose plant. If you don't know what that means that you're taking it one drop at a time. Drop dose plant, low dose plant. One drop. The first time that you take it, you're taking a single drop, not a full dropper's worth, just a single drop. And that's after you tried all the other things before. So you're taking a single drop, and that's on the first day of whatever infection, whatever serious thing you're dealing with, that is, or whoever else you're helping is dealing with that calls for pokeweed. One drop on the first day, and then second day, one drop. You're doing it one drop for like a couple of days, maybe a week, and then maybe after a week, then you can go up to 2 drops. But you don't want to take this plant for longer than 2 weeks at a time. Done. After 2 weeks, if you're not healed by then, which you probably will be, like, this plant is really powerful and helpful when it's needed, but if you're not healed by then just stop using it and try something else. If you're going to use it in a blend, I encourage you to not use it in a blend. For example, okay, I didn't mention this before, but it's also really helpful for arthritis and any kind of like joint rheumatism. So one of like the best formulas for arthritis, like this formula is going to work. If you have tried other things, try this and it will definitely work for those painful joints. Black cohosh, prickly ash, and pokeweed. And prickly ash is another low dose plant. So yeah, I wouldn't even make a blend of it. I would keep them as simples, keep the tinctures separated as simples. A simple means like just pokeweed tincture, and then like a blend or a formula is like if you're putting them together and then it's contained in the same bottle, you know. So keep the tinctures as simples, and then you're taking like a milliliter of black cohosh, a couple drops of prickly ash, and then 1 drop of pokeweed. For arthritis, that's a really nice formula for arthritis. And yeah, so don't mix it, drop dose. Okay, what else about that? Okay, now let's talk about, okay, oil. Oil is one of the ways that I've used poke the most, because the oil is a really great lymphatic, and it's really helpful for tender breasts, like before period or whenever. And if you have any kind of like a lymph node enlargement, you know, wherever we have lymph nodes here, in the crotch and behind the legs. Those are like the main ones. And then we have like 900, I think 900 or 700 other lymph nodes all throughout our body. It's like our internal river. And so when you infuse the root into the oil, which I'll talk about how to do that after this, the oil is really encouraging on the lymph to get moving. It's like, hello, what's going on here? What's with the stopping? What's with the blockage? Why are we stagnant? Let's get some movement going. And so the oil is like really nice. My boobs get like really big before my period, which is nice, but it also hurts. So if it's, you know, it's too much, then pokeweed oil is gonna be really good for that. Okay, so how you make it is you take the root and you chop it up into thin, not too thin, like 1/4 inch thin cuts. Leave it out overnight on a rack to let some water evaporate, because you don't want to use, it's never a good idea to use like fresh plant in oil because of all the water content, unless it's a plant like St. John's wort or pokeweed. You know, you can also let St. John's wort wilt a little bit to get the water out, because just putting water into oil creates more opportunity for bacteria growth, and like it's super sad to have your oils turn rancid. I have a video on my Instagram explaining how to make infused oils if you want to learn more about it, but I'm not going to go into that in detail right now. But yeah, so you can leave the roots out into these strips to let the water evaporate overnight, and it kind of wilts a little bit, and then the next morning get a jar, and the way that I've done it before is like fill up the jar 3/4 of the way with pokeweed root, and then fill it up with organic extra virgin olive oil. And I mean, you can use whatever kind of oil you want to use, but I always use olive oil is my go-to, because it's just like super neutral and nice, and it's not like too thick on the skin, you know, it's not too, the skin doesn't absorb it like super duper fast or anything like maybe sunflower seed oil would, but I just love using olive oil. It's really neutral. And yeah, then similar method as with the tincture, shake it up every day, put the label on it, right, external use only, poison, you know, the whole warning people so that nothing bad happens. And shake it up every day. You can wrap it in a cloth so that it's protected from the sun, and then put it in a window, like and then put it in a window so it'll get a little heated from the sun, and then after a month strain it out, and then you got the oil that's going to last you a long time. And then you could make so many things with the oil. You can make a really nice like salve with it. You can make a really nice like breast cream with you know, you could do like strong red clover infusion as the liquid in the lotion if you want to go for like super like nourishing lymphatic support. I love the oil. That's how I've used it the most. I did use it a little bit internally when I had eczema, and it did help like move it a bit, but that wasn't what ultimately cured my eczema. And I knew that like there was some deeper source of why the eczema was happening. So yeah, that's another thing with skin conditions, is that like herbs can help to correct the imbalance a bit, but there is like a deep reason, a deep source why it's happening, and you need to get to that source. You know, I was also using creosote infused oil on my eczema, and that worked well at first. Creosote is another really good antiviral, topical antifungal, and so it did help a little bit at first, but then after a while I was using it for like a month and my skin started just getting more irritated. So yeah, poke will help ease along the healing of skin conditions, but you gotta find that source. You gotta find the source. My source for my eczema was an amino acid imbalance, and I haven't had it now for a couple of years, which is awesome, but that's another story. Yeah, okay, I think that might be everything that I wanted to talk about. Therapeutics. Oh, the way to tell if you've taken too much is you'll start to get a little dizzy. Like if you're taking too much internally, you'll get dizzy and like woozy and confused. And if you continue down that road and don't listen to your body as it's telling you these signs that you're taking too much, then you will enter a state of psychosis, and you'll have serious liver damage and kidney damage, and it'll be all bad. This plant can really fuck you up. It's like literally poisonous. So this is like, it's, you know, as I've said, it's a plant that's not the first one that you go for. The poison aspect of it induces psychosis. So if you have any kind of like mental illness that leads to you having states of psychosis, then this is definitely the last resort for you, because it could trigger you into an episode. And so you just want to be really careful. This is a very intense plant, really freaky deaky. But I love it. Okay. I hope that was everything that I wanted to say about therapeutics. Oh, with the mastitis, with the mastitis, people have also used the berries as a poultice, which will then like totally turn your boobs a deep red color, and who knows if like you might be allergic, you know, you might have like a bad response to it. That's like an old-timey thing. We don't have to do that anymore, but you can use the oil topically, and mastitis happens when you're breastfeeding. So just if you are going to use it for this, which it works really well, just make sure that you really clean your breast before breastfeeding, because it's poisonous. You don't want your baby to be suckling on that. That would be horrible. But it does work really well for mastitis. You can also do a poultice. I've been reading a lot, and so all the information is like swimming around in my head. But you can, if you want to do the berry poultice and have like red boobies, then you can mix it with mullein and what was the other one? Mullein and mallow leaf as poultice, but it's messy, and poultices aren't always like an easy thing to do because it takes a lot of time. If you make the oil, then you have the oil ahead of time, and then you can use that, and it's not like you're making the whole poultice. But if you want to do that, then go ahead. Okay, now let's get into energetics. So energetics meaning like the plant's energy helping you to move through something. Okay, so I mentioned earlier about how this one doesn't really have it, but usually the flowers and the berries are all growing, so there's so many different stages happening at once. So it's really helpful through times of transition, especially amidst chaos, because this plant is like pretty chaotic, and it's always moving. Like I said, it used to grow like pretty much only on rivers that move, so it's like always trying to find itself, and so it can help you do that through chaos. On sacredessences.com, they said that it helps with strength and positive will force, especially helpful as a pick-me-up after an illness or fatigue. So again, with the transitions, and you just went through like some kind of surgery or something, then you take poke flower essence to help you through that. I guess I should talk about flower essences, because maybe you don't even know what like working with plants energetically means. So when you're working with plants energetically, you can work with them energetically in so many ways. You can sit with them, and like I'm doing right now, and I'm definitely getting like a pokeweed dose, and you can sit with them and journal and just like see what kind of influences you're feeling. You can also make a tea of it, not with pokeweed, but like say you want to work with chamomile or something, you can make chamomile tea and pour that into the bath and then take a bath in it, and that's an energetic dose. You can take a single sip of the tea, that's an energetic dose. So it's like low dose energy. It's like the plant's energetic footprint is going into you and is like bouncing around, making vibrations inside of you. And then there's flower essences, which is like the most common way to work with plants energetically. And so the way that you do that is you have the flower or the berry or the root, bark, thorn. You can make an essence out of like anything. Animal, nature essence, like say there's like a lightning storm going on and you want to capture a lightning essence, but let's just keep it simple and talk about pokeweed right now. So you take the flower, and there's a flower happening, and you have a glass bowl. You can also use like a crystal bowl. Bowl's full of water. It's the morning. The sun is at a part of the sky over here, and I am kind of a purist. Like I don't want my energy to be in the essence, so I don't want to touch the flower with my hands. So I'll take like a rock or like stick or something, but usually I'll take 2 rocks, and then I take the flower off with the rock, and then I put it into the bowl. And you can, put whatever feels right. Like if you want the bowl to be full of flowers, depending on if the plant is bountiful, like if it has a lot of flowers, like there's so many flowers growing on it, so you can fill up the bowl with flowers, or you can do it with 1 flower, or you can not even take the flower off of the plant, and if you're able to, put like a chair where the flower is hanging, and then the flower just sits into the bowl, and so then you don't even have to take the flower off of the plant, which is really nice. And then you leave the flowers into the bowl for hours for the sun to go over the sky, so you're making kind of like a solar infusion, and then you strain after you let it infuse, you strain the bowl, the water of all of the flowers and essence of whatever the material is, and then you put that into a jar. You fill the jar up halfway with the water, and then the other half with brandy, and that is the mother. I mean, I could do like a whole flower essence class, but this is like short version. and so that's like the mother, which is like the bulk of it, and then you just take a couple doses of that a day, like couple drops, and that's flower essences in a short form. And so again, if you're wanting to work with pokeweed energetically, it's really helpful for transitions in times of chaos, pulling through with willpower and like strong sense of self, and like we can get through this. So like right now, this plant is really helpful for right now. We're all going through transitions. This is like really intense times, and this plant can be really helpful. A lot of us don't have health insurance, and this plant will be really helpful if you have an infection that's not going away. Like this is good medicine to be working with. And it's good to know that it's poisonous. It's good to know the boundaries that it's making for itself. It's like, I'm poisonous, be careful. So yeah, that's pokeweed. Don't think I have anything else to say about it. I encourage you to get out and meet a pokeweed plant. Just like look at it, like before you make medicine with the plant. I mean, first try to grow it yourself, but a plant like poke, usually it's growing all over the place, so it's okay to harvest at the right time, blah blah blah. Okay, I guess I'll just leave you with that. Pokeweed, food, a medicine, a poison. Thank you. This is my first YouTube video, so let me know how you think I did, what else you want to hear from me, like what other topics. Leave a comment, like, subscribe. Thank you.